There was a great week this week, and Donald Trump Jr. really summed it up in this tweet. Trump beats impeachment, Dems in disarray, and the Lincoln Project burned to the ground. The rhinos in the GOP establishment are exposed and collapsing. Cuomo and the Dem govs are in freefall, and the media are depressed and lashing out at Dems for their impeachment fail. Maga ascending. And that's totally the truth. I mean, it's really good to see that Donald Trump is not being fully impeached by the Senate. The vote was 57 to 43. Of course, you need 2/3 majority in the Senate in order to impeach a president, even though he's not even in office right now, which is stupid. But this is really good news because that means, as you know, Trump can run again in 2024, and I think he can and will, and he will win. Don Jr. mentioned that the GOP Republicans, the do-nothing Republicans, have also seen a significant decrease in their traction. Donald Trump, according to the polling, and I think this is internal polling, so we can trust this, Donald Trump is, his favorability among Republicans is at plus 75. Mitch McConnell's underwater at negative 15. That's pretty damn bad, and here's a great image to sort of represent that. I think that photo was taken at Trump's most recent speech, the Union speech, State of the Union, and there is the current majority leader, I can't even remember his name, where Trump's sort of in a doctored photo is holding up the newspaper acquitted. Now, I want to touch on this topic of Gina Carano. Gina Carano is sort of a person that has seriously been put through the fire this last week or so. As you know, many of you know, if you have Disney Plus or watched The Mandalorian, Gina Carano is an actor who was cancelled by Disney. Why? Well, this week, she ended up putting a post out, I think it was actually this week or last week, a post out which basically read this on her Instagram or Facebook. She said, Jews were beaten in the streets not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbours, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realise that to get to the point where the Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbours hate them, simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? Now, what's she pointing out here? She's pointing out that don't demonise people, otherwise we might fall into the same trap that the Nazis did, because people had to first be demonised even to their neighbours before the Nazis were able to round them up. So because, neighbours were telling people where the Jews were actually living. Now, Gina Carano, this isn't the first time she's sort of run into this situation, because so now, off that last message, Gina Carano was cancelled and she lost her job off Disney and will not star in any future shows, even though there's one show which is based around her and her character. But this isn't the first time she's sort of run into controversy. I think it was about last year, she ended up being challenged by a lot of the woke mob on Twitter. And they were saying, Gina, why don't you put your pronouns in your bio? We need to know your pronouns. And she's like, okay, if you oblige. And then she put beep, bop, boop into her bio. And this obviously triggered a lot of people, and it brought a lot of heat onto her. Another tweet that she put out, which we agree on, and I've got to be careful how I phrase this, otherwise Twitter might take me down. I might not be able to read it all. She basically said we need to clean up the election process, and then she started to lay out ways of doing that. Remember, I cannot say some of these things, otherwise I will be taken off the platform. Go to Rumble if you want to see the rest of the conversation there. So in response to this, Gina basically said they can't cancel us if we don't let them. And the Daily Wire swooped in and basically called Gina and offered her a position to produce and star in her own upcoming film for the Daily Wire. Now, what is this? What is this basically? Well, the concept is that the reason why conservatives are losing the fight for their nations is basically because they tend to stay out of the culture. They tend to stay out of the media. They tend to stay out of movies and sort of the institutions, those that make the rules of how to teach their kids. Well, the Daily Wire is trying to make inroads into the culture wars. How? They're creating movies, and they made one very recently called Run, Hide, Fight. Now, the Daily Wire started, basically swooped in and said, Gina, do you want to produce a movie? We don't want to see you cancelled by Hollywood, or woke Hollywood, who Ricardo has often pointed out as being funded by a lot of Chinese money. Now, this is excellent news. This is really, really good news. I would encourage everyone that has a Disney Plus account, including myself, cancel your Disney Plus account and go subscribe to the Daily Wire. I think it's about like $70 or $60 a year. And why? Because that's what funds these movies. That's what allows them to fight back. If you don't subscribe to them, just similarly with this show, if you don't subscribe to this show and sort of support financially, the shows disappear. That's just what happens. And the intestinal fortitude of the Daily Wire cannot be understated in this. This is a very bold venture. These aren't things that are cheap to develop. They cost tens of millions of dollars. And the fact that this is happening is incredibly exciting because I think it can be really successful to make quality movies again. The other thing is, if you subscribe to the Daily Wire, you will also go and see that they are doing a conversation called a Sunday Special this Sunday, where Ben Shapiro is sitting down with Gina Carano, and they're actually going to be discussing this topic, which is really exciting because, what it shows is it shows that you can discuss a topic together and you can actually show that you're fighting back. And Gina's been doing that legendarily. And the thing with Gina is she's a real feminist. Feminists, they tell us we want strong women. We want women that can, really throw a punch. And we want women that, are empowered and independent. And then you get Gina Carano come along. She's an MMA fighter. She is very, relatively masculine in these movies. And they're like, oh, no, we can't have any of that. That's not acceptable. It's enraging. It's disgusting. And I'm really encouraged to see that Gina and a lot of people are getting behind Gina. In fact, Cancel Disney was trending #1 on the day I think it happened. It's great to see the Daily Wire throwing a punch. And the people, this seems like it's what the people want. A lot of people, even in the Star Wars community, have been very shocked by the cancelling of Gina. Let's move to the next topic. Talk radio legend Rush Limbaugh has recently died of cancer, unfortunately. Now, the importance of Rush Limbaugh cannot be understated. He basically pioneered, he broke ground on the podcasting services, on radio talk show hosting. Now, Rush was really imperative in that, and I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for Rush. He really broke ground in this area. And his contribution cannot be understated. In fact, I think he raised over $27 million over the course of his radio show for the same cancer that he's actually fighting now, which is really great to sort of fund the research for that. Unfortunately, we sort of saw the true colours of people here. We saw Hollywood celebrating Rush Limbaugh's death, which is disgusting. They ended up saying stuff like cancer killed the cancer. This is a man that made a significant contribution to the country. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in, I think, October last year, everyone, we even saw Trump's reaction to it. He got it live on camera, and he hadn't heard it, and they broke the news to him, and he said, look, she was a brilliant lady, she lived a great life. He didn't say, good riddance to her. He didn't say that. He said she lived a lovely life. She was a true feminist, one that pioneered sort of the inroads into the judicial system, and she really made it easier for other women to enter the system. Like that, why can't we do that now? Rules for thee, but not for me. Maybe that's why. The next topic has been really topical the last few days. It's been the fact that Facebook has deplatformed Australia. Now, it's a very shocking incident that's actually made international news. This isn't a topic I don't have all the answers on, guys, and I don't have a solid position on it yet. This article was written by Cauldron Pool, Evelyn Ray, which has been really good in educating the world on what's really been going on. Evelyn Ray's really a phenomenal journalist, guys. I definitely, and writer, I definitely get behind her and follow her on her social media. She wrote this article about Facebook basically getting rid of all social media, and this includes things such as emergency services for government content, all Australian news content, local news, international. It can't be shared internationally either. Why is this happening? Well, as you may have heard, it's due to the News Media and Digital Platforms mandatory bargaining code, Bill of 2020, which would force Facebook to pay news organizations for content that publishers voluntarily place on their platform. What does this mean, basically? Well, this legislation has been put forward because a lot of news organizations, they don't feel like they're being paid their fair share of the news they put on Facebook. Recently, the Murdoch Media and a number of other media organizations, I think Channel 7 as well, they reached a deal with Google, who had a similar problem, and they're sort of in negotiations, and they came to a solution on that.